Cold DMs can be quite controversial, partly because most people are so terrible at doing them.
A template is out there and then everybody starts using it. But it also brings up, like, if your offer is so good, does it matter, the message?
When you're writing your headline, ask yourself, if you were to just go knock on a stranger's door and say this headline out loud, what would they do?
And then at the end, I leave a very important message that I think is the most important. And it says,
I want to kick things off today with the topic of cold DMs, because cold DMs can be quite controversial, partly because most people are so terrible at doing them. And they're kind of like those annoying ads, which no one really wants a lot of the time. And a lot of them can pretend to be personalized, but actually they're not, and they really feel like it. And so in general, most people have a genuinely bad feeling about cold DMs, and that they don't really do well. And a lot of people will actually get some really bad messages from people who they send cold DMs to, where it's like, oh yeah, as if this is personalized, or just like, go away, or shut up, I don't want this, or stuff like this. However, I know you kind of get the opposite feedback with your cold DMs. Aside from booking calls, getting clients, and building your agency to where it is today, you get great responses even from people who don't actually want your service, which I think is one of the most interesting things. So do you want to talk people a little bit through your cold DM, how it's actually structured, how people could maybe apply it to their own business, and why you think it works so well?
Yeah, that's honestly one of the things I was most surprised about, is because, like, you're going to get the messages from people who are uninterested, and then sort of like malignant people, I guess you could say, just like vindictive in general. Like, there are always going to be the people who are like, why are you messaging me? Like, fuck off, this is gay. Like, I've had those messages too. But overwhelmed, you know what I'm talking about. Like, there's always going to be those people that are just outwardly rude.
I sometimes do the classic where I try to pick, like, if they send me a bad offer or it's just really bad coffee, I'll be like, hey man, what's the conversion rate on your DMs? And they're like,
I've done that too.
And I'm like, man, do you know why? It's because your copy and offer is absolutely shit. Or he'd be like, who you're targeting is completely wrong. Like, I am literally a copywriter and you're trying to sell me copyright services. They're like, what? So who should I be targeting? And I'm like, by my coach. Yeah. And
you put the Uno reverse card in there and they don't know what to do.
I don't know if I've actually closed someone through it, but I've definitely had like a few people who've like switched from like not knowing me to following me to then like liking my stuff and joining my email list. So yeah, it's quite funny.
Yeah, I've definitely pulled the Uno reverse card a couple of times on people that I'm just like, I don't think you understand who you're messaging about. I've had people message me about like my services and they're asking me about how I do them. I'm like, I don't understand your question. But besides the point, like, cold DMs in general is just, yeah, hot topic, because you either have the people who are good at it and can do it and get clients, then you have people that are terrible at it, which is 95% of everybody, and then they complain and say that it's stupid. I never really liked doing cold DMs, just like in general. It was never something that I dedicated time to. But after I hired my VA and established, like, you know, what task do I need to do right now if I want to scale to XYZ? Like, what are the most important things that not only I can do, but I can have somebody else do to get me there? And one of those was not only doing cold and warm outreach, which, in case people listening don't know the difference between cold and warm outreach, is cold outreach is, at least how I define it, is people that don't know you, they don't follow you, they have nothing to do with you. That's the first point of contact. Warm outreach is more like they follow you, they know who you are, they know your services. So when you message them, it's a little bit different. And I have different messages for each one, because I don't want to give the impression that I'm just spamming these messages. And I've told my VA, like, it's better to send 20 messages to like highly targeted people that's more personalized than 100 that are just like blank templates that you're just copy and pasting. And so, a lot of the times, yeah, I'll get to like how I think anybody can create a message that is similar to mine to get those sort of results. And, you know, I think what you brought up is like one of the funniest parts is I'll get people who message me. They're like, hey, thanks for the offer. I really appreciate it. It's just not something that I'm looking for right now, which is sounds like it would be like the typical response, but most people will never even reply to you. And if they do, it's normally not something positive if they're not interested. Or people will say that this is the best offer I've received so far. It's just not for me. Okay, like that's fine. It's not my ICP, but it's interesting to, because everybody is getting blown up in their DMs. I'm sure I could look right now and have probably hundreds of people trying to message me. Hey, have you tried cold outreach on IG? I just don't think that, right. I know that you've received those because I get like 4 of them a day. And I don't think that's the right way to go about it. I really don't. So the way I set up my cold DM message for my VA to send is very simple. I try and be just straightforward. I don't think people are straightforward in their messages. If I have to think about what you're trying to say to me, or if you're trying to sell me or not, or what the service you're trying to sell me is, like, I'm not going to respond. Because it's just, I don't want to put more work on myself. The whole point of, if you're a service provider and you work with clients, is you want to make their lives easier. You don't want to give them more work. I think in people's cold DM messages, they often create more work for their prospect in that sense. So what I do is very simple. I say, it's, hey, name, whatever it might be. I just introduce myself. I'm Hunter. I have this agency and we do this service. And this is a person that I've worked with and provided great results, and I'll tag them in the message. And I've obviously talked to like this person that I'm tagging in the message and asked if it was okay for me to do that, because people might message them, and he was okay with it. But if you don't have somebody you can tag in the message to immediately showcase that you're providing results for reputable people, just provide some sort of social proof. Either something you've done for somebody that provided a quantifiable output or something like that. People want to see numbers, like hard data. So I say, hey, name, I'm Hunter. This is my agency. We do this service for this type of business. So normally it's like, we build custom Notion workspaces for email marketing agencies or digital marketing agencies, or we'll try and tailor the ICP message like to that person. But typically they're around the same, so we don't need to change it too much. But yeah, it's just really straightforward like that. Hey, this person, this is my agency and who I am. I do this. This is somebody I provided the results for. Here are the results. And then at the end, I leave a very important message that I think is the most important. And it says, I looked at your profile, thought you might be interested. No worries if you're not. Like, I think it's very important to leave people that option of like, you don't have to engage with this particular offer. I think most people try and force it on others. Like, here's my offer. Are you interested? Like, have you done this yet? Like, I don't want to answer that question. I don't like that. If somebody messaged me and was like, hey, I do this. If you're interested, cool. If not, like, no worries. That just seems so much more friendly. Like, that's how I would tell somebody in real life. I think about it like that. Like, how would you meet a stranger and then propose your services? You wouldn't be like, have you tried cold IG outreach yet? Like, we just developed this tool. Like, I don't care. How do you know? Like, what? Why would that work with me? God, that just, those ones I've been getting recently have really bothered me. But yeah, that's typically how I set up the cold DM messages. And something I also do is I have started having my VA message everybody who follows me. So like, no matter who it is or when they follow me, he'll just send them a message that's, hey, name, I would love to, or thanks for following me. I appreciate it. I'd love to learn more about you and your business, if they have a business that's like visible in their bio. If they don't, then I don't have them include that. But I think that's also really important for just establishing a connection versus just following somebody. But yeah, I've had pretty good results with that so far. It's honestly just most interesting to see people be like, this is a great message. Like, thanks for your offer. Like, to be thanked that I messaged them is really interesting, because I don't I can you think of a time where you were like, thank you for this? Like, I'm not interested right now, but thanks for like messaging me and letting me know about it.
Very rarely, like
Yeah.
maybe once in a blue moon. I think what you said there is really important, where you just treat it like it's a person. Like,
Mm-hmm.
this is something
That's
that my
yeah,
mentor
so
at the
big.
moment tries to push in all the time. And it's like, stop thinking in like tactics. Like, oh, do I do this? Do I do that? It's more just think holistically in terms of this is just one person to the other. And I think those are probably the times when I've said that, when I can literally tell it's just a genuine person reaching out and saying something in a human way. And I'm like, oh, actually, no, it's
Yeah.
fine. Um, I've got, three interesting things four actually interesting. Well, that was one of them. So three now for interesting. So for starters, the danger of templates. So
Templates in what sense?
in the sense that someone's like, oh, this is how you structure a cold DM.
Okay.
I'm going to
Yeah.
use this. So people, like the risk with a coach giving away his template is that anyone who that coach is coaching will use that template and all spread it about. And if they're in the same niche, then people are getting the same DM. And so it's obvious use a template. And it's almost the rule of templates. Anytime a template works, it will at some point phase out and no longer work, which means it's super, super important.
True.
So before you learn the templates, learn the principles or think holistically about what you want to say so that you have the ability to make something that looks like your own. And that way, no one's ever going to copy it unless you start spreading around your template. So it's really important. Although it seems easy, I'll just copy this template. And there is definitely something to be said to pattern matching or copying something that works. But try and add your own spin or make your own template as soon as you can, because that's ultimately going to make you harder to copy and give you almost an edge, because everyone else is going to be using templates and you're going to have your own little personalized one. That's my first point.
I disagree.
You disagree with what now?
Well, it brought up two things in my mind. And it's not that I disagree entirely. I just think that there's another part to it. It reminds me of, like, you know what Raid is? Like the bug spray that you spray for ants or like mosquitoes. Okay, so it's just like an insecticide that you spray somewhere and it's supposed to get rid of ants or bugs or whatever. The problem with that is that over time, these bugs become immune to it. So the company has to develop a new formula that kills it because they they get resistant to it. And that's similar in a sense of like, a template is out there and then everybody starts using it. But it also brings up, like, if your offer is so good, does it matter, the message? Like the template? If everybody else is using the same template, but your offer is so good, does it matter that it's the same template everyone else is using?
I would argue probably yes. Well, one, because obviously the offer itself might not even be in the message, depending on what the template is. Like, it might just be a short little thing, hey, you're interested in this, rather than here's like everything that I do and the price or whatever, or like just a more clearly defined offer. I would also say when you see the same template that you've seen 100 times, say on X before, the moment you start reading it and it feels just like every other ad, you almost get like a card comes up.
Yeah, you just kind of like immediately go, I've seen this before. Like, I don't need to actually pay attention to it.
It's like when you walk down, like the Asian markets. I don't know if you've ever walked for Asian markets.
Surprise.
And as soon as you go in, you can see someone walking up to you, going to sell you something, or how could you be like, hey, try this? And because you get used to seeing that so many times, you like instantly just almost put up a facade where you're just like, head down, I'm just going to walk through this. I'm not buying anything. And so I think if you have a great offer, ultimately it matters less to you. I agree with that. That is a good caveat. But if you can still present your way in a way that's slightly different, and it's like got your own little spin on it or whatever, and it's not just a blanket copy of the main template that everyone's using, then there's going to be that less of that instant garden, more like, oh, this is something actually different. This is a bit more personal. And so I think, so I agree to the extent that, it's with the copy, it's not the most important thing. Like, the most important thing is always who's seeing it and what the offer actually is and whether they want the offer ultimately. And because if you get that right, you can have terrible copy and probably still get some sales. But I think in general, like even with DMs, it's slightly different. But especially on Twitter, you can see like all you see is like the first line of the DM or like the first two lines. If you're copying the same template as everyone else, you just look the exact same in that list.
I've seen that. Yep.
The same with cold emails. If you use the exact same cold email subject like quick question.
Oh man, I will never answer those.
Every other single or it's just any email like it's just the more different you can be ultimately, like the better. It's kind of like you're trying to basically get noticed in a crowd. And yeah, if you're like tall and good looking or whatever with great hair, even if you're wearing the same clothes as everyone else, you're probably going to get noticed. However, if you turn up in like a pink, I don't know, Mandini, Mankini sock, you're going to get noticed. Not that I would advise that. The second point, I loved your point about reducing pressure, your little ending bit, because I remember speaking to a sales coach a while ago, and he was like, one thing that I do that hardly any people do is during the sales call, I make it clear that it's literally fine if you say no. I'm like, look, I really don't mind. I know, completely fine. There's absolutely no pressure. I just want to present it to you. Just let me know if you don't want it. Instantly takes the pressure.
Exactly how I started the call this morning.
Good man. Did you get it?
It seemed like it went well. He has a business partner that wasn't in the meeting because he was traveling, so I'm just sending them a proposal that his business partner can review. But I started the meeting with like, I just want to learn more about your business and what you guys do, what current bottlenecks you're experiencing. Then I'll tell you about what I do, show you some examples, and if this works for you, we can go from there. I just want to see if we're a good fit. Like, I'm not trying to be like, what's stopping you today from investing in this? Like, I've been backed into that corner. I don't like the way it feels. I don't think it establishes a great working relationship. And I think if you're going to do things with people long term, it's the most important to work with somebody who wants to work with you, not somebody you're like forcing. So yeah, it's just a little caveat onto that.
Yeah, agreed. And obviously, once you don't have that sort of pressure, you can relax and you feel like you're in a safe space. And it's like, yeah, all right, maybe I'll buy this. The only thing that sometimes you do need is obviously a little bit of urgency every now and then. But in a sales call or service, it can be sometimes quite hard to do that. It's a lot easier if it's like, I mean, you can be like, look, I don't mean to pull like scarcity tactics, but I can only work with so many people. I'm not like a huge agency. It's just me or one other guy. And so we do like to be fairly picky. So sooner you can, the better. But yeah, agree with that. I've actually just thought of the other point. So technically it's 5 in total. So you kind of mentioned it where it's talking just to people and just treating it like you're speaking to people in real life. So Ben Settle, who's like the king of direct response email marketing, in his private newsletter, he gave like a great tip for headlines, which is like the knocking door test, basically. And so it's like, when you're writing your headline, ask yourself, if you were to just go knock on a stranger's door and say this headline out loud, what would they do? Like, would they be like, fuck off, mate, this is utter shit? Or would they be like, oh, mate, this is interesting, like, let me hear more, basically? And I think the same basically applies to cold DMs. It's like, all you're doing is knocking on a stranger door. And so there's 3 things that matter when you do this. One, it's like whose door you're knocking on. Make sure you're knocking on someone who's actually going to be interested in your message. 2, it's the message itself of what you're trying to say. And then 3, it's the actual offer, right? It's what are you actually giving them? And like, what is the thing that the message is actually trying to sell? And I think if you get those 3, if you just see it that way, and then you just write your message that way, and it's like, oh, what would I literally say to a stranger who I know is potentially interested in this, and write that out. You don't necessarily need the templates as much. You kind of do almost similar to what you're doing, where it's just like, I just see it like a person. I'm just going to write something out which I think they're interested in, basically.
That's a good point. Like, I don't like, well, it kind of reminds me of like, I used to work this job when I was electrical utility inspector, and we would travel throughout the week. And one of the things that we did some weeks was change out meters for people. And if you don't know what a meter is, it's essentially just measures how much electricity you're using every month. So the electricity company knows how much to bill you. But what we had to do, and this was like peak COVID time. So like everybody was at home, working from home. But I had to go, and I was 18 at the time, and, you know, wearing a hard hat and safety vest. And so I kind of look a little funny. I look a little funny, right? And like there's this, and I was the one who was responsible to go to the doors and tell these people what we were doing. And there's like a guy behind me, he's like 40 years old, has 2 kids, big beard, and I'm just like this kid, knocking on people's doors. And I think in a way that helped me a lot for like cold DMs, and not cold DMs. It's not like I did this to practice for cold DMs, but it gave me that perspective of like, I'm talking to real humans. Like these are people. Like I had to go up to their door and tell them like, we're going to turn your electricity off for about a minute or two while we replace this. And I've had every type of reaction to that, but it's something we had to do. Like I've had people like come out, I knock on the door and I say, hi, I'm from this. We're going to do this for you. XYZ. And I've had the person look at me and then look right past me at the guy that I was with that looks like a real like adult man and just completely disrespected like that. So it's it definitely gave me that perspective of like, these are just people. Like we're just talking to humans. Treat them like humans. I haven't heard the example of like writing email subject lines in a similar way. I think that could be a really great framework. Yeah, it's honestly any form of communication when you think about it. Like people just want to be treated like people, not like they're this product that you're trying to acquire.
And there's two. Yeah, go for it.
The second thing was I just remembered this. I do not like it if people have like these multi-message script where at first they're like, hey, and then it's like, are you like, how's business? And then it's like, are you currently like, I don't like that. If I feel like somebody is like doing a script on me, I'll just stop answering. Like I would way rather somebody message me and not too long. Like I don't want to read this wall of text. Just as concisely as you can say, hey, I'm this person. I do this service. I thought you might be interested. If you're not, no worries. I'd way rather receive that because I've, been on the other side of it. So that's just kind of my thought process on why I choose to go with just sending one DM with the message versus having some complicated script of A/B testing and all of that. Like I don't like it. I feel like I'm treating them like not human beings.
Does that mean you don't send follow-ups, or are you saying more you just go straight in with the thing? Because I agree. Like I hate it when people are like, hey man, your content resonates with me. How's your business?
Oh my god.
Flipping say what you want.
That's what I'm saying. Like, just get to the point. Like, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want you to waste mine.
Do you? But then I do think follow-ups are important in terms of like you send that main offer, it slowly gets lost down. Instead of doing things like liking the message, sending a meme, sending emoji, something just like whatever it is to bring that message back up. I feel like that's useful.
No, that is a good point. And there is a difference between like doing that script and then follow-ups. I do follow-ups and pretty ruthlessly, honestly. I learned from a mentor in one of the communities that I'm in that he put it like this. He was like, if you have an ICP and they show you some sort of interest, you should follow up with them until they tell you to fuck off or put a restraining order on you. It's like, okay, that's interesting. Because he told me like, I think it was like 7 to 12, like most people don't like buy a service until like the 7th to 12th time you contact them. So he was like, just keep following up. And I've had that work with some people. So yeah, follow-ups, I do follow-ups.
Followed up for 18 years. Or I know a sales coach who knows someone's business who followed someone up for 18 years because they just knew they were the perfect client. And after 18 years of following up once a week, closed the client, and they've been working together for like a few years since.
Oh yeah, I mean, unless they're telling you that they're gonna like put a restraining order on you or telling you specifically to fuck off, yes, you should follow up. I think those how many times you can follow up and be consistent is the difference of like if you're going to make it or not.
Yeah. So someone in my community asked the other day, how would you guys recommend I respond to, I appreciate the offer, but now's not the time response to a cold email? And he said like the brand could 100% benefit from his work, but he's just not really sure, what to do after they say basically not now. And a bunch of people had an idea, like just be like, oh, so you're not interested in adding X amount of revenue with this, or I'd personally just like let it go. And Paul Providers, who's got like 400 million in tech sales, absolute don. He had such a good reply, and he was like, in all seriousness, you can't take sales personally. So if someone's like, not now, just be like, respond, no problem. I'll check in periodically and send you info that I think would be helpful for you. Then put him in your CRM. Do not pitch him anymore, but instead send case studies and industry reports about your service, so about email marketing or whatever, and eventually he'll be your customer. Do this for about 2 to 3 months. And he said, I've called on businesses for 2 years before they sent me my first PO. I've never not gotten a customer by delivering value, building relationships, and a consistent good follow-up. And I would only add this for your A prospects. So like the people who you think they would be perfect, I can do so much for them. Let Bs and Cs, let Bs come to you. So your Bs, prospects, and turn away Cs, which I thought were, some fantastic points, to be honest. And just to quickly add on to the knocking door things again, because I think this analogy just goes so well. So the other thing that obviously matters is warm versus cold, like you messaged at the start. So if you go up to a stranger, if you go up to someone you already know and you say something that you would say to a stranger, how do you think they're going to react? They're obviously also not going to be happy. Like if you're just like, hey, it's great to meet you. I do this. Are you interested in it? When they already know what you do and that you do that, it's just going to instantly be like, oh man, like this is just obviously automated. Like I've been following you for like 3 years, whatever. Or like we've literally had a conversation before and you're saying this. So yeah, changing the messages for warm or cold is important. The other thing is, this is why offering just a free lead magnet is so effective. Whether it's in something like DM or even just in a paid ad. Like if someone came to your door and was like, hey man, I've got this cool thing which is really useful, I might just be able to fix. Like say you have a leak in your roof and you're like, oh, I've just got this bit of tape which you can just have for free and we'll fix that leak. Someone's obviously gonna be like, oh man, yeah, sure, like what do you want? Like, do you want my details or whatever, or my email or whatever, and are willing to trade it. And so one thing that I know a great just sales money agency coach guy does is he has basically, say, 3 different lead magnets which hit different pain points. So for example, for you, it would be how to build my own systems, how to maybe just like be more productive as a freelancer, and then how to think about systems for your agency. And so when someone follows, be like, hey man, thanks for following. I love to give like something free for everyone who follows me. Which one out of these 3 would you be interested in? And in this case, probably don't get the email, just literally make it a complete gift because they followed you. And if they're like, oh, can I have C, which is, oh, how do I set up a systems for my agency? Chances are they're going to be great for starting a conversation about pitching your agency services. If, however, they're like, oh, actually, I want to know how to be more productive as a freelancer, then they're probably not going to hire you as a client, but maybe they're going to want some consulting on how to build systems in the freelance business. And the other one, if they're just like how to build systems for myself, more broadly, or like just how to build systems in general, it's probably not really for the freelance, but maybe someone who wants to do what you do, to the which point it's maybe more even coaching, where you train someone on how to build systems. And then the final point for the knocking doors analogy, how you look. If you go up to that door and you look like a tramp, or you look like Hunter in his goofy ass like helmet, like builder suit, people are obviously just going to look at you and be like, who is this fucking dweeb? And like, close the door. But if you come in and you look professional and you look like you just look good, people are obviously going to want to talk to you, which then ties into your profile, where if you've got a few followers, if you've got a great bio, a great profile picture, a good banner, a link to a high quality website or some case studies or testimonials, you're obviously going to have a way higher conversion rate with all of your DMs, simply because you're knocking on someone's door and looking approachable. So yeah, those are my final points.
I think presentability is more important than I think a lot of people think it is. Something that I think or at least I've experienced that I think is really interesting, that I think is a limiting belief for a lot of young entrepreneurs, is they think that because they're young, that it means that people automatically assume they're inexperienced, or that they can't provide results or that, people won't hire them. But in all honesty, I've almost experienced the opposite in a way, that because I'm young and I'm doing these things, people almost assume the opposite, that like, because I'm young, they're like, they're sure that I'm going to get these results because other people have worked with me before. It's never like, where did you go to college? Like, what's that?
It's like the child genius. They're like, man, if he's doing this,
yeah, no, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. No, that's exactly right. Like, they think that if you can do this at this age already, then you're the perfect person to do it. Because, like, why would I hire some 40-year-old when this kid does it so great? Like, and that's how they look at it. Yeah, that was a really big limiting belief for me when I first started. I thought that I needed all of these credentials and like to show that I was experienced despite my age, but in all reality, you don't need that. I think you can play to a competitive advantage. I think that's just a limiting belief in a lot of young entrepreneurs' minds.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the final point to it all is, if you're not even knocking on doors, you're not even going to start any of those conversations to get clients in the first place. Now, obviously, I would argue inbound is better than outbound. So if you're creating loads of content,
100%.
and so instead of knocking on doors, you're creating your own door, literally in the middle of the village, and be like, hey, walk through this if you're this person and interested in this service. That's ultimately the best. But if you're not doing that, then you've got to be knocking on doors. Or if your door's like a little tiny cat door in the side of a village because you've got so few followers and just not getting much traffic, you probably want to incorporate some cold DMs so that you actually are knocking on doors, because who's going to get the client? The person with the tiny little mini cat door who's not who's not knocking on anyone's doors, or the person with the same tiny cat door but is also knocking on loads of people's doors and starting loads of conversations. It's probably the one who's knocking a lot of conversations. Oh my God, there's another point. So another point to all of this is, obviously what matters so much is who knocked on the door before you got there. So you walk into a village and you're the first person to knock on a door. And let's say you sell refrigerators and you knock on a door and you're like, hey man, I've got a refrigerator that does X, Y, Z. Are you interested? If you're the first person to walk into that village, easy pickings. You can just walk through. Anyone who wants a refrigerator is going to go for you. However, if this ties into the template thing, if loads of people have walked in before you, like 10 people, and they've all knocked on the door saying the same thing, you are going to have to change your message a little bit, because ultimately these people are way more product aware, and you're probably going to have to go in more with why the specific refrigerator that you're selling is so much better than everyone else's, and maybe even go a little bit broader initially when you're actually starting the conversation. Make it a little bit more aware. Hey, how you doing? Blah, blah, blah. I just come to talk about X, Y, Z, rather than just going too early on with the pitch. So yeah, how you look and then who's come before you, it's really important, to be honest. And it's definitely something you should do when you are doing any sort of outreach, is like, what are other people actually sending them?
I think that's a good point, in the sense of like why I originally brought up the comment of like, I didn't think that templates were important if your offer is unique. And I think that ties in a lot to why I've received messages that are like, oh, thanks for this offer, instead of like, fuck off. Is because like, now I'm assuming, because I obviously don't know this, but I'm guessing most people that I've messaged haven't been messaged with an offer like this before. So it is new. It's not like I'm an email copywriter and they've got an Instagram cold DMer, like they've gotten this message 100 times before. Whereas it's a bit novel in a sense, where like they haven't been approached about this sort of thing. So that's why I thought like the template didn't matter as much if what you're offering is, if you're the first person to offer it, in that sense. A quick technical tip that I do to avoid that template, because like obviously a lot of people are just like using the same thing. I normally do, hey, the name, and then I'll put like a space. I'll put a break in the line. So the only thing they see is hey in their name. Because if they can get the sense that if it's a template, they're probably not going to click on it. Or if it's just their name, like I know myself that I've clicked on those messages to see what they're going to say. So there's a quick technical tip, but that's why I think that templates are less important if your offer is unique, if you're the first person to knock on that door. If you're not, then the template and the intro message you're using is going to be exponentially more important because you are competing with other people who have knocked on this door.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the other caveat to the template is pattern matching is very effective. So what I mean by that is taking something that you see someone else doing in a different niche and then just taking that and applying it to your niche, because chances are not many people are doing that either. Like, if the template's been given to you in like an email copywriting community where everyone else is email copywriters, that's not going to be as effective. But if you're like, oh, this is what this design agency is doing, or like, this is what this Hoover company's doing, and it's actually working really well, I wonder if I can apply it to my thing. That can get pretty powerful.
I also think it's important to state specifically who you work with in your message. Like, I think there should be 3 parts. You should introduce yourself and who you are, your business and what your business does, and then who your business works with. Because if you tell them that like you work with your specific type of company, they're going to be more interested in what you do, especially if it's specific. Like, if they feel like you're the perfect person for them because of what you said, like that you do this service for their specific type of business. And there's differences between, like, if I were to say that I build custom workspaces for online companies, like that's maybe like a $200 service. Whereas if I say I build custom workspaces for online agencies, maybe that's a little bit more expensive. Like it moves up, and maybe that's going to be, $500 to $1,000. Where if I say I build custom workspaces for lead gen agencies with remote teams, somebody reads that and they are a lead gen agency with a remote team, they're going to go, wow, like this is for me. And I think that's important when you put in your intro message.
Yeah, agreed. And I think Gary Benevenga, I literally don't know how to say his name, but one of the best copywriters alive.
What did you just say?
Gary Benevico?
Gary. I'm going to send this to him after and be like, look at Tats, just butcher your name. And we're going to go to your house with picket fences.
But he talks about bullet points. Because in copywriting, like, bullet points are one of the most important skills to master. How to write a good bullet. And one of his bullets is if you're this, you can get XYZ result. And why it's so powerful is adding any qualifier to a claim makes the claim so much more believable. Like, if you're like, hey man, you can make 10 grand a month with YouTube ads. Okay, interesting. Yeah, whatever. If you're like, hey, if you're an e-com business that sells a $10 product, did you know that you can be making like 10 to 50K a month? Or let's just say, do you know you can be getting a 7x return on ad spend with YouTube ads using XYZ formula or whatever? And instantly it makes it so much more believable because you're slapping on a qualifier and you're like, yeah, this doesn't apply to everyone. There's actually some people who will read this and it doesn't work for them. But aren't you lucky because you just happen to be in the category of people that you are targeting? So yeah, I think that's huge. The other thing that's worked really well, like, I've not actually sent too many cold DMs. Partly because I'm lucky with the brand, like haven't really needed to as much, and just like having no longer clients and it being mostly coaching before. But one of the things that worked really well, I literally did it once. So technically it's got like 100% success rate. Just sending a little free sample. Like, I went to Upwork. I saw a guy was looking for a website, like a new website, basically. I went and I just screen printed the whole website and I stuck it on Miro. Then I just clipped out the format for the headlines and I just drafted him like 3 new headlines and an example layout. And I was like, hey man, just drafted this for you. Let me know if you're interested. And instead of applying through Upwork, obviously everyone else is applying, I found his website and I sent it to him as a cold email. And I was like, hey mate, heard you look for a copywriter. Are you interested in this? 5 minutes later, he was like, yeah, that's great. Can you call tomorrow? Boom, booked call. And this is in like one of the most competitive, saturated industries, which is copywriting. And once again, it's because most people will not go the extra mile. Most people can't even necessarily deliver. So the more you can show that you're a little bit different, the more you can go a little bit further. It's a lot easier to stand out than you think.
Very true. Like, I think of somebody, kind of like a mentor once told me that, and I think he got this from somebody. I don't think that he originated this, but And partially, like when I started doing those messages where it's very specific and targeted, I kind of thought that I was going to be alienating a lot of people, which in a sense you are, but you don't want to work with everybody. You only want to work with people who want to work with you and that you know that you can provide the most value to. So, in that sense, he was like, think about it like you only need to get 100 no's. It only takes 100 no's and you only need one yes. Like if you knew that, how much more quickly would you work to get those no's instead of working to get a yes? Because you only need one yes. I think that was a really powerful framework when I first, and even now, like people are going to tell, like most people are going to tell you no, but you only need that one yes. So really just don't be afraid of alienating people. Like you want to work with the people you can provide the most value to. Like don't worry about not, like when you go specific, like when I talk about I work with online companies versus I work with lead gen agencies who have remote teams, like yes, that is really specific and is going to alienate 99% of people. But the 1% that it doesn't, like that's who I want to work with. I think people are more focused about like trying to get the biggest fish net out in the water instead of having like the most well constructed fish net that's designed to catch the only fish you want to catch.
Yeah, I agreed. I think two more things just to quickly add on this. So one is there is a caveat to the kind of the pitching straight with your offer where some people will say it's better just to go purely with like, hey man, super personal and just start a conversation. Then from the conversation, you find a problem. Then from the problem, you dig deeper, you find the deeper pain of the problem. And then from there, you pitch a solution or you're going for a book call. That also definitely does work. I know people who it works very well for. It just obviously takes a lot more time. It could take like 21 days. I think it's the average time to conversion. And I think the thing to realize with this is, once again, there is no like only right way with a lot of this. Like you cannot say, oh, if you just send the offer, it won't work. Or if you do the other, it won't work. What you've got to do is ultimately just test one to the other. Like if you hate having this 21-day conversation, managing CRM conversation and going like more for this longer route where you're trying to sell someone, then probably just don't do it. Feel free to just go with the offer and kind of do what Hunter does at the end. It's like, look, I just thought from your profile you'd be interested. No problem if you're not. Test both, see which one you prefer and go to it. Because ultimately it doesn't matter really which one you do. It's just the fact that you're doing it in the first place. And I think the other cool thing about just DMs in general is like, I think Will Mosley talks about it, where it's as sure as night and day. Once you know what your conversion rate is, you know that if I send another 100 DMs, I'm going to get X amount of book calls. And so although it's not as pretty as content, although it's not just like, oh, I'll just do some posts and I'll get people come to me, you never really know people are going to come to you when you do the content. But you know roughly with the cold DMs, if I'm targeting this person with this message and I've sent 1,000 and I've got this conversion rate, chances are you send another 1,000, you're going to get this result. So it's one of those things where like when you're short on cash, when you really, really need to get clients or have a little push, it's the kind of thing that you can just turn on and just go like beast mode and be like, okay, let's just absolutely slam these out. And to help with the saying no thing, one of my first mentors, who was the founder of the two companies of when I first basically started doing marketing, and he recommended a great book to me called Go for No, which is just a short book you can basically read in one sitting, but it just teaches you the lesson that going for the no/rejection is often like that you should see that as the reward. Like don't be like, oh yeah, I got a yes, that I'm happy, like that was my aim for the day. Instead, be like, I want to aim to get 1,000 no's today, and aim for those instead of saying I want to get 5 yeses today. So that when you get the no, you're not like, oh damn it, you're just like, okay, I've got another 100 no's to go. And then when you get the yes, you're like, okay, cool, I'm just gonna go for more no's.
Yeah, I feel like it has a lot to do with expectations, and keeping yourself intrinsically motivated. Because if you're expecting yeses and you just keep getting no's, it's going to be really easy to be unmotivated and want to stop and be like, this isn't working. Whereas if you're expecting no's, then I think it's a lot easier to stay consistent. And no matter what path you're taking, whereas if it's just the one message like I do, or if it's a script, consistency ultimately is going to be what leads you to get those clients or not. And I just want to say, like, if people are doing the script with like, you're establishing a conversation first and then you're looking for problems, I think that's perfectly fine to do. I just think most people don't do it in a genuine and authentic way, you know, where if I feel like somebody is trying to have a conversation with me to pitch me inevitably, like I'm just going to be immediately turned off by it. Like I'll feel like a product, which is more of a side tangent to that point. But I think it's important to, bottom line, just treat people like they're human beings.
Yeah, man. Well, I know we had a load of other stuff to talk about today, but to be honest, I kind of feel that this is probably nice just being as like a 45-minute
Very focused
cold DM masterclass.
No, I like that too.
So yeah, that was awesome. Thank you guys for listening. Let us know if you enjoy it, and we shall see you next week.
Yes, we will. Please go down, rate 5 stars, subscribe to the pod, whatever you do. We really appreciate it, and it helps us grow and know that we should continue to do this.
Yeah, man. Awesome. All right, see you.
Peace.
Yo, it's time to build leverage, stack up your advantage. Life and business time to manage, never stay stranded. Start with the vision, mission, plan of attack. Keep your eyes on the prize, no looking back.